Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe if you are enjoying what you are hearing. Now, on to today's story. Online Journal Day 4. Well, that's discouraging. So I'll just get into it here. Talked to my sister and her take as a cheater was interesting. She cheated on her husband, and he forgave her, but she says she wishes he'd have broken up with her. She feels like every time things were going good or felt like normal had been achieved, it came back up. She said her husband changed and she stayed with him and wanted to support him cause she knew she was responsible for that change. He was never the same man. She says he'd be good and they'd be happy, but when something was wrong or if she made any mistake, the entire relationship came into question. She said he would be okay one day and then the next cold and mean to her. Sometimes he wouldn't talk to her for a long time and then just be fine. He was upfront that he would never trust her again, but that he still loved her. She stopped hanging out with friends, doing things and just being a homebody, but nothing fixed the damage. And eventually when he died, she was still devastated, because she could never get back what she had. She says she loves her new so, but not like she loved her ex, or who he used to be. So I ask why she cheated and her answer was so ducking stupid. She didn't think it was a big deal at the time. She says she knows about cheating, how it destroys everything. She just wasn't thinking about it at the time. And when it came to telling the truth or coming clean, she just couldn't. She said it had nothing to do with the guy she had been ducking. That was exciting only because it was something new, something she wasn't supposed to do, and all that. He wasn't actually better in bed than her husband. She said it was more she didn't know how to mentally accept that there was no good reason for what she did. She wasn't unhappy with her husband. There wasn't any malice. Work had stopped them from having sex often, but that really wasn't it. She didn't lie to protect the affair or the AP, she says she just couldn't admit she ducked up, how bad, and that she was completely wrong. She said you never think you're that person. Or you can do that to another person. The one thing Danielle said that really made my skin crawl is that love didn't matter. People say you don't love your spouse if you do something like that. She says the worst thing is that we are so selfish we can love you with everything we have and still do it anyway, because we're not thinking about anything 3 feet past our face. Most of the time. Danny says she hated herself for a long time and to be honest, she didn't deserve her ex-husband at all. So Danny then says I need to take a little responsibility for Amy's mental state. I was upset, but she says that I contributed to Amy's self-esteem issues. She pointed out I would always say stuff like, my big beautiful wife or my hot chubby mama. She says it was never insulting. I always seemed like I was trying to make her feel desired. But I always brought up her weight. Danny says early in our marriage when mom and dad used to make little comments about her weight, or digs, I wouldn't take them seriously. I would say stuff like, they don't have to like how you look, I love the way you look and stuff like that. She says I also kind of treated Amy like she was lucky a guy like me would date her. She brought up one time at Six Flags when I jokingly said something about her still landing a catch, in reference to a skinny hot girl parading around her ugly boyfriend. I was about to argue, but Danny talked over me, as she and mom often does. Telling me nothing I did excuses anything Amy did, but I got to be mindful of the climate that was created. Amy's insecurities were apparently obvious to everyone but me. But I knew she had those issues, it's why I always tried to compliment her. Tell her how sexy she was. And we were married. Obviously I chose her over every other woman on the planet. And my opinion should be the only opinion that matters. But apparently women aren't wired like that. In the end, Danny believes that Amy does love me and is probably hating herself and regretting her actions. She says Amy might just do everything you ask and be completely honest, and work the rest of her life to make it up to me, but that might just not be enough. She felt like her husband spent the rest of his life punishing her, and she deserved it. She had not right to argue with him on why he was distrusting, or the time he couldn't talk to her cause he was imagining her infidelity. Danny thinks I'm too angry and vengeful a person to forgive anyone. And thinks that divorce might be the best option because of that. Mind you, Danny thinks Amy just cheated on me. Mom hasn't shared what she knows. I'll write a journal about my day and my adventures trying to figure out Fire Emblem later. This is probably the most discouraging thing I've heard so far. Online Journal Day 5, Our Sweet Mundanity. So, today was an interesting, but a good one. Well, as normal as it could be. On the plus side, I got my Rocky Roccos. I have been playing way too much BOTW, it's ducking addicting. And I have been trying to keep it clear. As I thought, my mom couldn't keep her mouth shut. So Dad had come to talk to me. But he was chill. He just hugged me in a headlock and then kissed my head like he used to when I was a kid and just said, "You are not obligated to shit before you're ready." He didn't elaborate. He didn't say anything else about it. He just went on about his day. About halfway through the day I found my old fast tracks and spent a little while trying to fix it. The little antenna, I can't believe we still had it, broke, so I soldered it and spent time in the basement with my poppy chasing it around. I chilled and listened to some of my old records on the record player. There's this old tall thing in the basement that had cassette, record, radio and CD. Still works, with the old speakers. Was blasting the Synchronicity album and just thinking back a bit to when I would listen to all my dad's old records. Mom came home later and told me to get out of the house and sent me to Woodman's, where it took its first weird turn. Now Milwaukee is not a small city, not really. But there are key places we go. So it's not uncommon to run into someone you know at a place you know you both frequent. But running into London's ass at Woodman's was a surprise. I'm in my favorite hour remembering how much I love ramen, but can't buy any right now because that's a slippery slope of starch and carbs for me. I can stop at a slice of Rocky Rocco. Me and ramen have a bad history of binge. So I walk past and decide I'ma get real damn bratwurst for the first time in forever. They got nothing but Johnsonville down south and have no idea that Usinger's is just a superior brat. Don't at me, duck, you fight me. Anyway, shit's good and I'm just chilling, with my Raycons on so I don't hear the coming badness. Then I hear loud shouting and all that. But I ain't really paying attention. I grab my brats and turn and see a woman, yelling at a worker. She's stomping her feet, and acting like a baby, and I'm like, hey, look at that Karen. But then I really looked at Karen and it turns out I knew that Karen. Karen turned out to be Ms. Esmond, my 10th grade algebra teacher. Now this woman was like young when I was in school. So she's probably in her late 30s, early 40. One of those women who have a permanent sneer on their face. I barely understood anything in her class, math not being my best subject, and she was always rude as duck. She was always moderately attractive. I know a couple of guys had a crush on her, but she was an evil cunt, so I never saw the appeal. She's stomping her feet, yelling and talking about all kinds of shit. From what I could tell, they were asking her to leave because she kept bringing Don her mask to smell fruit. It was a small scene. Finally some dude came and grabbed her by her elbow. He was a big dude, darker than me, sounded like Bushmaster from Luke Cage. What I tell you about that girl now? You out her making a fool of yourself. He apologizes while yelling she ain't done nothing to apologize for. And he is dragging her back and she's looking around like she can't believe he won't help her be a dick. Then our eyes meet. I wish I had a witty statement. I thought of 1,000 of them on my ride back home. But instead I just looked at her all disappointed and shook my head. I was holding up my phone like I was recording her, but I was just changing the song. The scene had made me want to hear Bitches by D12. She looked mortified. I got my things and went back home and called up my sister, who had also had her, and we had a laugh about it. Was a good day. Since I was in a hurry, I didn't really talk about London. She saw me, but didn't speak to me. She was in line? I waved. Seeing both her and Ms. Esmond at Woodman's just made that day Twilight Zone. Online Journal Day 7. Jerry Springer Day. So, this is later than I normally post. I tend to write the previous day's journal early, but I almost didn't want to write this. Today was ducking strange. Day was normal enough. Woke up early, ate me a semi-good breakfast. Eggs over easy, wheat toast, fake sausage. Played with my dog and helped my dad chop firewood. Things were pretty good. Then shit went to hell immediately as Auntie Joyce showed up with the Grady twins in tow. I was at the table trying to fix a broken PS4 controller for my cousin, and they come in. My mom and dad were at work, so it was only me, Birana, and Uncle Brad. So when Joyce came in, I was like, oh cool, Aunt Joyce. Then her daughters followed her in and both me and Uncle Brad's face turned sour. I almost shouted that them bitches weren't welcome. When Brianna saw her sisters, she just got up and walked upstairs. I heard London say that was rude. And I scoffed, loudly, obviously, but Uncle Brad gave me that look, so I just let it go. They all sat down on the couch and Joyce asked me if I could make her some tea. I'm like, cool, and I get up and start making the tea, and London calls out that she'd like tea too. I ignored her completely. I made Aunt Joyce her tea, made sure it was only enough for 1 cup, and brought it to her with some of them lemon squares Mom makes that she likes. Though these different than the ones when I was little. Vegan, they're okay, but nothing like the real thing. Paris asked me if she can have some lemon squares, and I told her sure, and went to sit back down. It took a minute for her to realize I wasn't gonna get it for her, and she got up. Her sister asked her to get her some tea and lemon squares, but Paris told her she got legs. Which was funny and made London look all pissed, but she didn't get up. Weird thing number 1, Paris comes by and hugs me. I stiffen and give her a look like I just been touched by the zombie. She's all smiles and asks me how I'm doing and asks me where my wife is. My alarm bells goes off and I'm wondering who the duck has been feeding this bitch information. I tell her that we're going through some things and leave it at that. She gives me some vague commiseration, and asks her how her thing was going. I vaguely remember her dating some guy. She looks all funny at me and tells me not to be good. I give her a fake sorry to hear that, and return to what I was doing, but she gets to talking to me. Apparently her ex-fiancé is going to jail. He cheated on her and got a 15-year-old baby from Oshkosh pregnant. She knew the girl and they all thought she was 18, she had a fake ID to get into the parties. I asked when this happened and she said before the COVID, so the girl's like 17 now. I asked about the baby and she said to her knowledge the pregnancy was terminated. Like a jerk, I asked if this happened back in like 2019, why is it such a big deal now? She looked all embarrassed and shit you not, I laughed. I know you didn't stand by this man that whole time. She had. Basically he spun her some yarn about being drunk and the girl taking advantage of him, wanting to make it with a college guy. I'm looking at her like, that shit's harder to believe than the shit my wife's asking me to believe, and I got evidence supporting her nonsense. But shit hit the fan when she was approached by a 18-year-old high school senior who basically accused her of being the other woman on some Jerry Springer shit. I got really suspicious and asked her why she was telling me this. Cause like, she shouldn't know about my thing, and if she did, it had to either come from my sister or my mom. She put her hand on my hand and said cause I always listened and was nice to her, despite how much of a brat she always was. I looked at her like she was crazy. I was civil with them, but I wouldn't say I was nice to either of them. Though Paris wasn't as bad as London, so she never got my open contempt. I gave her a hug and told her it sucked she was dealing with that. We didn't get to talk more because London was all impatient and they had their own thing. I know I should have left, but I would be damned if I was gonna let them folks run me out of my own kitchen. So I stayed, and when they asked me why, I said, I'm here to support my uncle. Cause I didn't want them to gang up on him. They talked and my uncle reiterated that he was done financially helping them. London was her usual bitchy self, but Paris seemed like she had just accepted it. London argued that a lot of people partied in college and that it wasn't fair to take their wedding money away, and accused him of being petty. Paris made excuses about missing classes and being stressed and all that. But London was just oblivious. Uncle Brad was smiling and nodding and sounding like he agreed with them a bit, and I was worried he was going to cave. But then he surprised me by saying that they all had reasonable arguments, but he refused to spend any more money on them. He said they were grown and he did his best to be a good parent. He gave them love, support, and everything he could. He said some other stuff, but London huffed and basically accused him of trying to buy their love, which he looked hurt about. He then flat out asked her what she expected him to do as a parent, which Paris answered by saying he didn't really do anything wrong as a parent, he just not their father. He then said, no, he was not. He was just your mother's husband and the father of their sister. Even if he was just a family friend, is the way they've treated him acceptable? Paris looked a bit guilty, but London was her normal self, saying, they were kids who lost their father, and the man who fired him and sent him running was with their mom. How did he expect to be treated? This is when shit got interesting. Uncle Brad asked Joyce what she told the girls about the situation, and Joyce admitted she didn't really tell them what happened, just that their father had left with the money from their account. London then went on with a version of this story I never heard. That her dad had been using the company truck to run errands and stuff, and that Uncle Brad got mad at him. Uncle Brad was always suspicious and mean to her dad cause he was a convict and treated him differently than the other workers, and accused him when things went missing or things went wrong. That he caught Uncle Brad having an affair with Mom, and that he pressed charges about the missing tools and stuff to get her dad out of the way, and he had to run away to not go back to jail. London said this shit with some conviction. Joyce looked super surprised, but Uncle Brad's reaction was the best. So, Uncle Brad is always nice. Always helpful. Always mindful of others' feelings. To a fault. So when I say it was a surprise to see him laugh at this bitch, it was like so out of character. And it was just a simple laugh. It started off small, but as she kept going on, he just kept laughing to the point where couldn't even contain himself. London got mad and started shouting, and then told him that he only pretended to be nice so he could be with their mom and because he felt guilty. That's when Uncle Brad stopped laughing. Uncle Brad then started laying it out. He first told her that all of the people that work for him are convicts. The entire program is about rehabilitating people with felonies and teaching them construction and building and stuff. Every single person in that position was a convict, some with worse crimes than her dad. He said you can't be successful in the program treating them like they ain't people, so he was sorry, but she was mistaken about that. He then told her that he hadn't met her mother until her mother came looking for the dad at the work site, after he'd left. Told her he kept all the police reports and filings, so if she wants to check dates she can. But their dad had already stolen all their money and abandoned them before he met the mom. He also told her that he still had the video evidence of their dad's crimes and the only reason he didn't prosecute him, when he showed up years later, was for them. He then dropped a bombshell saying that the old tapes not only showed he stole the tools, got high at work, and didn't pull his weight at work, but other things. Joyce didn't want him to continue, but he just smiled and said they were grown and were ready to hear the truth. Apparently douchebag dad was ducking bitches at the work site. How he didn't know that they would be monitor convicts closely with cameras is beyond me. But apparently dude was a whole rolling stone. Joyce cried, and then it was revealed his crackhead on and off girlfriend down in Texas had been one of the staff. Not one of the workers. She hadn't been a crackhead or a criminal then. London tried to accuse him of lying, but he just smiled and said he didn't mind showing them the tapes. Also, he brought up a letter. Apparently their dad had left a letter about his leaving to Joyce. Uncle Brad said that Joyce thinks he believed her when she said she threw it away, but it's in her lockbox with a bunch of other stuff she should probably throw away. London was livid and Paris was shaking her head. London started saying some real out-of-the-pocket shit, and that's when I decided to get involved, cause some of the shit she was saying was real out of bounds. I told her she ain't a victim and she needs to stop acting like a spoiled, stuck-up bitch. I told her she was always mean and her dad leaving had shit to do with her and her sister being super bitches. They were super bitches when we met them. I gave some choice examples of shit they did and still do. How they treat Brianna. How Uncle Brad and my dad welcomed them to the family, how we went to all of her ballet and soccer shit, how he was there for Paris when she broke her leg and it got infected. It wasn't Joyce missing work, it was Uncle Brad. You best believe I brought up the cars and how she was ungrateful and how she rubbed that shit in our face. I had to buy my own first car. Even if my uncle ain't pay a shit to spoil they ass, he was there at every ducking event, every dance, every match, every game. He woke up early as duck to take you to them SAT prep courses and they ass don't even go to class. I told them that she was not mad that he replaced her dad. Her dad abandoned her and only shows up with his bullshit and sob stories when he wants something. But other than that he never calls them or talks to them. Because he knew they spoiled bitches, and I said maybe that's why he left in the first place. Because they are horrible. Uncle Brad asked me to leave at that point. But I wanted my mic drop moment. I have been wanting to yell at somebody for days. So ducking I just kept going. Talking about how they treated us. How when Paris got assaulted by that boy, who came to get her, it wasn't her dad, I came and beat that boy's ass. When London had got arrested, who came and bailed her dumb ass out and didn't tell on her? Me and Bast. When she was 15 and got pregnant that first time, Danny and Mom helped her get an abortion and didn't tell anyone. When she got pregnant again at 17 and went through the pregnancy and all that, Uncle Brad and all of us were really supportive. Her dad was nowhere to be found. When she lost the baby, Danny was by her side that whole time. She still treats Danny like shit. I pointed out how Paris used to steal my shit. Break my things and lie about it. Always wanna be up in my mix, but was really rude and nasty and I never cussed her out. I still had her back any time, but she was still a rude spoiled bitch. It's not us, it's you. Uncle Brad got mad and I was like yeah, I said my piece and went downstairs to the basement to lounge and play Sobot. About an hour later someone comes downstairs and I think it's Brianna, cause Uncle Brad make a lot of noise when he walk around, but it turns out to be Paris again. She comes sit next to me on the couch and I give her this look like she a damn bokoblin. I asked her can I help you? And she get all shy and shit and I'm like, listen I don't need an apology from you. You are what you are, we didn't establish what you are for a long time. You ain't got to apologize to me, but you best apologize to my uncle. She said she did, but she not sure that's enough. Apparently London Her stormed out of the house crying cause Uncle Brad got the bright idea to call up their daddy and get him to snitch on himself. I don't know what ploy he used, I didn't get to ask him cause he left with dad to go to Ernie's house to drink and he ain't been back to the house. But Paris said that they definitely confirmed a lot of what he said. Paris says she never believed her dad, but wanted to for London. She said she did at first and was really mean cause she felt like we were destroying her family when she was little, and that Uncle Brad was trying to replace their father. She said she was always jealous of us and of Danny especially, and that a lot of the problems were them being jealous of Danny and us always coming to Danny's defense. Which she was jealous of because she didn't have brothers. I told her that it didn't matter now, we are who we are. But she says she wanted to make amends. She admitted that the older she got the more she realized what she was doing was wrong. But London had put the idea of it was them against the world and she never wanted to betray London, especially to us. She said that she wished we'd been closer and that ever since that night that I held her when she was crying after that douchebag forced himself on her, that she had really wanted to just make up with me. But I was always so distant and antagonistic with her, unless she really needed help and then I would help her. She said London would always say we're throwing our lives in their face, but she realized her sister was bitter a long time ago. I asked her why she was coming up with this epiphany now and that we all have grown and so there's no need to change, but then she told me that Uncle Brad has been talking to Aunt Joyce about a divorce. She says Uncle Brad is thinking of divorcing Joyce because of them, not because of anything Joyce did. Though I suspect it has a lot to do with how passive she is and how she never corrected or curbed some of those misconceptions that made the situations so bad before. I hadn't heard this. She said she didn't want them to get a divorce and that they were happy and she would feel like shit if that happened and would be worried her mother would hate her. She wasn't worried about Uncle Brad hating her when she was being a bitch for all them years. But she said she wanted to try and fix things before it was too late. I wanted to tell her it was already too late, but I didn't want to be unnecessarily cruel. Maybe I'm bitter from my own thing, but I told her sometimes the decisions we make can't be undone. They undo us. And maybe that's what she has to think about. She asked if she could stay and I told her it was a free country, but she needed to go talk to Brianna and not me. Cause some of the shit I heard about that makes me not want her in my house. She apologized for that and went up to see Brianna. I don't know what was said there, but she came back an hour later and watched me play bot for a bit before going to sleep in the couch. She's still at the house though. Joyce, Uncle Brad, and Nem left. Far as I know she's still down there. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Have an awesome day or night, wherever you are.